Hello, this is Naqueta Allen, and I will be talking to you about 3.5 in the book, and this section focuses on the chain rule. And the first problem I'm doing is problem number 39, and it says find the second derivative of x, which is f double prime. And the problem is f of x equals x, the quantity of x cubed plus x to the fourth power. So using the chain rule, you first use your power rule, where you take the exponent down to the front, and you write your function and decrease your exponent by 1. Now, that's not the total answer because you have to use the chain rule and find the derivative of the function within the parentheses. So you have to find the derivative of the inside, which would be 3x squared plus 1. And that's the first derivative of it. So this equals f prime of x. Now, when you're going to find the second derivative, you have to use your product rule. So you're going to find the derivative of the first, well, you do the first times the derivative of the second plus the derivative of the first times the second. So you're going to do 4 times x cubed plus x cubed times the derivative of this one, which would be 6x, plus the second, 3x squared plus 1, times the derivative of the first, which would be 12x cubed plus x squared times 3x squared plus 1. Now, you want to simplify this, so you can multiply this out and have 24x times x cubed plus x cubed plus 12 times 3x squared plus 1 squared x cubed plus x squared. And then you can simplify and take out 12 and x cubed plus x squared. And then you'll be left with 2x times x cubed plus x plus 3x squared plus 1 squared. And that will be your answer. Okay. Now I'm going to do problem 39. Well, 49. I just did 39. Okay. 49. Okay. 49 says determine the values of x for which a f prime of x equals 0, b f prime of x is greater than 0, and c f prime of x is less than 0. For 49, the problem is f of x equals x times 1 plus x squared to the negative 1, which can also be written as this, but for these purposes, we'll leave it like that. So first you want to find the derivative. F prime of x is equal to, you're going to use the product rule and do the first times the derivative of the second, which is negative 1 times 1 plus x squared to the negative second, and then you use the chain rule and go inside the parentheses, and you have 2x. First times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first, and the derivative of x is 1. Okay. So basically you can set this equal to 0 equals x, or you can have 2x squared, negative 2x squared times 1 plus x squared to the negative 2 plus 1 plus x squared minus to the negative 1. Okay, now when you set it equal to 0, you can move this to the other side and you'll have 2x squared times 1 plus x squared to the negative 2 equals 1 plus x squared to the negative 1. What you can do is you can move this to the denominator and have 1 plus x squared equals 1 over 1 plus x squared. And then you can cross multiply and have 2x squared times 1 plus x squared equals 1 plus x squared, and this can cancel out on each side, and you're left with 2x squared equals 1 plus x squared. You can subtract this x squared from both sides and have x squared equals 1. So when you take the square root of both sides, you're left with x equals plus or minus 1. So f prime of x equals 0 at x equals 1 or x equals negative 1. Now for the second part of the problem, we have to find, we did that one, we have to find where f prime, this is really nasty, where f prime of x is greater than 0. So basically you do the same thing, and you have your derivative, which is, I should have left that there, first times negative 1 times 1 plus x squared. And so you want it to be greater than 0. So you can, there's a 2x here. Do 2x squared over 1 plus x squared squared plus 1 plus x squared to the negative 1 over 1 plus x squared is greater than 0. You can move this to the other side, and you're left with 1 plus x squared under 1 is greater than 2x squared over 1 plus x squared squared. And with this one, you can multiply both sides by 1 plus x squared squared. And this cancels out. And you're left with 1 plus x squared on the top is greater than 2x squared. And you can subtract this x squared from both sides. And since this is never going to be negative, you don't have to worry about switching the signs. So you're left with 1 is greater than x squared. And if you take the square root, you know your positive square root is going to leave you with x is less than 1. And your negative square root, because when you take the square root of this, the answer is going to be plus or minus 1. So if it's minus 1, you have to flip the symbol, and it'll be greater than negative 1. And so f prime of x is greater than 0 when x is less than 1 and greater than negative 1. And that's part B. Now, part C, you do the same thing for, except your sign is flipped. And so you're going to be left with 1 over 1 plus x squared is less than 2x squared over 1 plus x squared squared. And you do the same thing and multiply by 1 plus x squared squared on both sides. And you're left with 1 plus x squared is less than 2x squared. Subtract x squared from both sides. 1 is less than x squared. And you do this again. And you're left with x is greater than 1 and x is less than negative 1. So the derivative of x is less than 0 when x is greater than 1 or x is less than negative 1. And that's how you do 49.